Hello, and welcome to the Reselling Report podcast for today, Tuesday, July 7th, 2020. I'm your host, Ann Eckhart, and every weekday I upload the Reselling Report to update you on the day's retail and e-commerce news, including the latest from eBay, Amazon, Etsy, and Poshmark. Whether you are listening on YouTube or your favorite podcast site, make sure you are subscribed. And now let's get on with today's show. Well, happy Tuesday, everyone. I hope things are going well in your neck of the woods and that you are busy with your reselling business. I know a lot of people sourced over the weekend, so hopefully you are getting all of that listed. We are now officially in the back to school shopping season. I'm not really sure what that's going to look like this year. I know we've talked about that a little bit. What are people going to be looking for as kids head back to school, if they are heading back to school at all? It is up to every district in the country as to what they do. Some schools are offering online or in-person classes, whichever parents want to choose. Some are doing staggered attendance, so certain kids go to school on certain days so that they can control the number of students there. It's kind of all over the place. And of course, with cases of coronavirus surging in America, who knows what things will be like in the coming month when schools start back up. I think here they're starting up around the third week in August. At least that's the plan. But again, it just depends via district. So I'm not sure what you are selling, if anything, for back to school right now. If you're seeing an increase in clothing, you can definitely let me know. I do want to mention a big shout out to Denali El Ducho for having me on her Flip the Script podcast. That will be linked below today's show. So if you want to go over there and listen to my interview with her, that was fun to do. I don't normally do interviews and collabs just because it is kind of hard for me to carve out the time, especially now that I'm doing the reselling report. This is almost a 2-hour project a day that I need to focus on, but I did want to be on Denali's show. She does a really great job with her podcast. So if you want to go listen to my interview with her, you can head over to Flipped the Script podcast. It's on Anchor as well as most of the podcast sites. And again, it will be linked directly under today's show. So let's get into the reselling sites themselves. Today, we're going to start with Amazon. This is a story that is on a number of different sites, but I'm referencing the one on CNN Business. This one's titled, Amazon Shares Just Hit an All-Time High. Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos, already the world's richest man, has even more to celebrate. Amazon shares topped the $3,000 mark for the first time ever Monday as tech stocks continue to soar. Amazon is now worth more than $1.5 trillion. Oh my gosh. I can't even fathom that amount, joining Apple and Microsoft above that lofty level. This has helped push the NASDAQ to an all-time high above 10,000. Google owner Alphabet topped the 1 trillion mark on Monday, too. These four tech giants, along with Facebook, are now collectively worth more than $6.4 trillion. Crazy. Tech stocks have led market's stunning rebound from its March lows on expectations of strong sales and earning growth, despite the fact that the U.S. economy is now in a pandemic-induced recession. So just more proof that the reselling sites themselves, Amazon, eBay, Etsy, Poshmark, all continue to do quite well as people turn more than ever to e-commerce. Turning now to Etsy, there's a really interesting thread over on the Etsy community forums that I wanted to point you to. This thread is titled, Yet Again, Items Being Blocked from Search. So this is a very active thread with quite a lot of replies. As I'm looking at it right now, there's over 408. So if you sell on Etsy, this might be something that interests you. The original post reads, It is happening again, starting on January 28th. I couldn't figure out why a few items suddenly dropped in sales, again, 50 to 75%. Year over year. So I checked to see if my search terms changed. They did. Since January 28th, 2 of my items have been blocked for the search key term bottle opener. Etsy search for bottle opener, and I filter down to the town Stevens Point, Wisconsin, and get 38 search results. Etsy search for bottle opener in my shop, 40 search results. These numbers should match. This means Etsy is blocking 2 items from the search for the keywords bottle opener. And then they go on to post results from November to December. Now, that was the original post, but as I said, is extremely active and is currently being updated. I'm going to go to the very last post to update what people are saying today. So just recently, I'm having a similar problem. My top seller with bestseller badge is suddenly gone from Etsy's search. Is still ranking on the Etsy app. Sales have declined, reached out to support and waiting on a response. It's very disappointing. My field is highly competitive and I worked so hard to create a visible listing and suddenly it's gone. Another person writes, my bestseller is completely missing again, only for its most popular search term. It's as if they are holding our organic search results hostage if we don't use ads. Maybe somebody already mentioned this, but I noticed Etsy plays with search results and sometimes limits the number of items a shop can have on the first few pages of search. They did this a few months ago and would only allow a shop to have one listing only on page 1 of search for that particular keyword, same as with all the other pages. I don't know how they did this, nor what pages your other products should have ranked on page 1 products. I just know that they do this occasionally. Yet another person, I'm fighting this issue for 2 weeks now. First, one item has disappeared from key search term, and then after 5 days, one more. What's best? These are 2 of my best sellers. And of course, my stats are going down fast. Really don't know what to do. Keep pushing my ticket, but aside from auto, stupid, really nothing. So I think these are mostly sellers who do handmade items and they have multiple quantity, which is why it's so frustrating. They can have a bestseller. They have multi-quantity of an item and then it's not appearing in search, but you can let me know if you are having issues with your items not showing up in Etsy's search. This thread is very active and it sounds like a lot of people are very frustrated with Etsy's search feature right now. Over on Poshmark, there's a really interesting thread that I wanted to point you to over on the Poshmark Reddit forum, which is the place to go for the Poshmark information. This thread is titled Getting Flagged for Counterfeit Listings. It's a very active thread, so that's why I wanted to share it with you. The original poster writes, I'm getting really irritated at Posh's flagging system. I've had 3 authentic Louis Vuitton items flagged for being fake. They threaten to suspend my account, then you have to send a listing appeal in, etc. They need to get their blank together because they have little children clicking, yes, this looks fake. Seriously, don't they have a better system? And then quite a few responses here. Someone wrote, exactly, I'm always being asked to review listings for authenticity, but what do I know? It just seems irresponsible on Poshmark's part to rely on everyday people for these things, especially if entire accounts are at stake. Another person writes, I know unless it's a clear knockoff or brand I know about, I can't tell. I click not sure on at least half the listings I'm asked to review. I know zilch about Louis Vuitton or sneakers. Posh should survey what we do know so we can help accordingly. I can spot fake Betsy Johnson jewelry with one eye shut. Let me review those fakes. Another person, yes, this is honestly BS on Posh's part because random people can flag authentic Louis Vuitton items all day long without any proof. And then Posh threatens to suspend perfectly good sellers. The app is a blank these days for the luxury market. Do you have receipts or authenticity certificates that you can show in the listing? Because otherwise your listings will continue to get flagged due to Posh's reporting away. So as I said, this is a very active thread over on Reddit. You can let me know if you are someone who sells luxury items on Poshmark. Do you deal with being flagged and needing to prove their authenticity? Look, I'm in the middle of Iowa. I never find luxury goods, so it's not really a problem for me. But I know those of you who live in larger cities or who have access to higher end items or just selling items yourself from your own closet, do list higher end items. So you can let me know if this is a problem for you over on Poshmark. Turning now to eBay, there's a new article over on the e-commerce Bytes blog titled, Should eBay Let You Sell Your Account? Post reads, over the years, we've heard from sellers wanting to sell their eBay accounts, but who were unsure if this was allowed. In Germany, eBay is now allowing sellers to do so, according to Mark Steiner, who writes about e-commerce on his site, Wart Filter. We noticed his recent blog post in which he is working as a broker to sell a third-party seller's eBay account. If a sale is made using I believe it's Wart Filter, I will receive a commission, he writes. We reached out to Steiner, not Steiner, but Steyer. I thought maybe, is she writing about her husband? No, Ina Steiner writes the e-commerce Bytes blog. This is someone else. Apologies, these names trip me up. Who told us about account transfers have been possible in Germany for a few weeks. And he said he confirmed it with eBay. The seller must transfer the account to the new owner in account settings. In 2010, eBay spokesman told us that eBay did not allow users to transfer eBay user IDs as a general rule, though she said it made some exceptions in rare cases. That remains the case 10 years later, according to the eBay.com website, which states, in the interest of protecting our buyers and sellers and maintaining a safe marketplace, you can't sell your eBay account or change its ownership. Your eBay account has value when you develop a strong feedback rating and satisfy your customers. Feedback is intended to reflect a seller's performance, so we don't allow accounts to be transferred or sold. Attempting to sell an eBay account may result in buying and selling restrictions, as well as an account suspension or removal. So this is an interesting development. Apparently, Germans can sell their eBay accounts, but eBay is still saying you can't overall. I don't know. Now, someone would want to sell their eBay account, or someone would be interested in purchasing an account because someone has built up a very high feedback. That's, I would assume, is in the interest of somebody buying another account. You hear about people buying websites and blogs. It's because those sites have a very large following. When the person doesn't want to maintain their site anymore, they can sell their site to somebody else who then can jump on in with their own content and have the built-in audience. So that's where somebody would want to buy someone's eBay account, is to get that feedback and establish sales record. I don't know anybody who's ever done that or tried to or wanted to, but it is interesting if they're going to allow it in Germany. Is there something that's going to be allowed here? Now, I agree with what eBay originally said, is that why would you want to purchase from someone if you knew they bought their account from an established seller and now you're essentially getting a new seller and you really don't know what their history is because you're going on the history of the old account. But I don't know, it's just interesting. I hope this doesn't, I just wouldn't like this to be allowed here in America or most other parts of the world. So it's interesting that Germany is apparently allowing this, but we'll see how this story plays out. The Department of Justice is really busy dealing with resellers as of late. The story about 6 former eBay employees being arrested on cyber stalking charges, of course, has been the big story. But we have another story from the Department of Justice. This is a press release titled, West Monroe Man Sentenced for Bilking Nearly $2 Million from Online Customers. This press release reads, and this is from Louisiana, United States Attorney David C. Joseph announced that a West Monroe man was sentenced in federal court yesterday for his role in a scheme that bilked eBay customers out of nearly $2 million. Randall Keith Bird, 66, was sentenced by the U.S. District Judge Terry A. Doherty to serve 4 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release. Judge Doherty also ordered Bird to pay $1,371,000 in restitution. Yikes. Bird pled guilty on March 16th to 1 count of wire fraud. According to information presented in court, Bird used eBay and PayPal to defraud hundreds of eBay customers out of nearly $2 million over a 5-week period. Bird listed and sold gold and or various types and quantities of coins and primarily received payments through PayPal. He never sent the purchased merchandise to the customers. When eBay customers inquired about the status of their purchase, he provided fraudulent shipping and tracking information to delay discovery that he had not sent the coins. As part of the scheme between March 2019 and June 2019, the defendant utilized existing bank accounts and established new bank accounts to conduct financial transactions with the proceeds from his fraudulent coin sales. In September of 2019, law enforcement officers executed a court-authorized search warrant of his residence and found $228,000 in cash, a cashier's check in the amount of $140,000, a Harley-Davidson motorcycle, 3 Rolex watches, 66 gold and silver coins, and 11 firearms. The FBI and Louisiana State Police conducted the investigation. I say, if people would put as much time and effort into defrauding people, if they just put that amount of energy into making legitimate money, they'd be quite successful. I mean, this is quite a scheme to go about all the listing and the scamming and the shipping, defrauding. Like, why didn't you just go to Goodwill, buy some stuff and resell it that way? But anyway, another bad story that puts all resellers in a bad light, I think. So I hate to see these things come out. But sounds like this guy is going to be sitting in prison thinking about what he's done for a while. I always like it when the reselling sites get mainstream media coverage, and there is a new post over on USA Today. A columnist wrote an article titled How to Get the Most Out of eBay as a Seller or Buyer, and this article just talks about how it's been a hard time with the pandemic. Either people have lost their jobs, forced to take a pay cut, they want to sell things from their own house. So this is just a list of things to do, of selling tips. Make your post stand out with your headline and your photos. Try seller-initiated offers. That's the offers to watcher feature. Timing is key. Price your items right. eBay says Sunday is the busiest day for purchases, followed by Saturday and Monday. I do feel that Sunday is the busiest for sure. Saturday? Monday, for me, Sunday. And then they give some other selling tips, the buy it now option. If you start an auction, be clear about your return policy, build your reputation by asking customers to leave feedback, which I do not like. Do not ask people to leave feedback because they will get ticked off and they will not leave you feedback, or else they will leave you a positive star but write something negative about you in the feedback line, because you can't leave negative feedback for buyers, but you can write something. I don't like when people ask me for feedback. I'll get to it when I get to it. It says advertise your eBay items. Elsewhere, buying tips says check the history of the seller. Buy instead of bid and counter offers. So look for those buy it now. Make offers. Research the product you are buying so that you don't buy the first product you see. Make sure you're doing research. And other tips are research the seller. Don't be afraid to ask questions before you buy. No, don't ask a bunch of questions before you buy. It should all be in the listing. Look for certified refurbished items and only pay with a secure payment such as PayPal or credit card. So this will be linked in the show notes below if you want to go through, read the article. Just a little fluff piece about eBay. But like I said, I always like it when the reselling sites get some media attention, because if it brings customers over to our sites, then that's a benefit to all of us. Did you apply for any of the Small Business Administration's programs during the height of the pandemic? The Trump administration has released a list of companies that received the most money from those small business bailout loans. Now, this is a story that is appearing on many sites. I'm just referencing the one over on CNBC. The key points are the Treasury Department and Small Business Administration on Monday disclosed the names of businesses to whom it has lent more than $150,000 as part of the PayPal Protection Program. The disclosure comes amid demands from Democrats for more transparency around the funds established as part of the $2 trillion CARES Act signed into law this spring. Those loans disclosed represent nearly 3/4 of total loan dollars approved, but a far smaller portion of the number of actual loans. So this is a list of the companies and organizations that received over $150,000, with 87% of the loans less than $150,000. But we have law firms, Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao's family business got $350,000 and $1 million. Restaurant chains P.F. Chang's and Chopped got $5 to $10 million. The Archdiocese of New York got $5 to $10 million. Joseph Kushner's Hebrew Academy in New Jersey, which is named after Trump's son-in-law, got a loan between $1 and $2 million. Niche movie theater chain Alamo Drafthouse received a loan of $5 million. And political organizations such as the Ohio Democratic Party, the Florida Democrat Party Building Fund, Women's National Republican Club, and the Black Republican Caucus all got money over $150,000. Now, the SBA released other details about the program, saying that it has approved 4.9 million loans for a total of more than $521 billion. Companies said that the funding supported more than 51 million jobs, but the businesses reported the total when they applied for loans, and it is unclear how many of those employees stayed on the payroll. The program has about $132 billion in funding remaining. The average loan is $107,000. Applicants in California received the most money overall with $68.2 billion, followed by Texas and New York. Businesses in California, Texas, and New York that received loans reported having about 4.1 million, 2.7 million, and 2 million total employees, respectively. Businesses in economically distressed areas, as designated by the SBA, got nearly 23% of the loan money, while companies in rural areas received about 15% of the funds, and industries getting the largest share of net PP dollars were health and social assistance, professional, scientific, and technical services, construction, and manufacturing. So, of course, the big companies got in there and got the most money. It's not surprising. There's still money in there that they're either trying to distribute. It's just been a mess. The whole system of sending out those stimulus checks and now these small business loans, it just was a mess to start with, trying to get legitimate applicants through while the big companies took the most of the money. Some people still haven't gotten their stimulus payments. So yeah, we are 4 to 5 months after all of this was released and supposed to be pushed through, and people are still waiting for their money. So if you didn't get a PPP loan or any money from the government for your business, don't feel bad. Looks like a lot of other people didn't either. And finally today, there's a really interesting article over on the HuffingtonPost.com that I wanted to share with you. It's titled, "Thrift Stores Can Outlast a Recession, but Can They Survive the Coronavirus?" As the pandemic rages, secondhand stores around the country are flooded with donations and doubts. So the article reads, Cindy Husband oversees a popular thrift store in Houston that was, until earlier this year, a vibrant, bustling place where customers and workers hugged often and laughter rang out. Hundreds of shoppers showed up every day to browse the endless racks of low-priced donated clothes. But then came the pandemic. Like many businesses across the country, the nonprofit Memorial Assistance Ministries resale store and boutique shut down for nearly 6 weeks in the spring to curb the spread of the coronavirus. MAM opened in May with a long list of new safety rules that Husband struggled to enforce. She was letting only a few people into the store at a time, but would still catch them standing close together and chatting. In the employee break room, she kept finding chairs pushed together. Their guards are down and it's scary, she told the Huffington Post in late June. It had been about a month since she had reopened, and it was just days before she closed MAM stores a second time following a surge of COVID-19 cases in the state that hit the Houston area particularly hard. For months, Husband has been in a constant state of anxiety, distraught at the explosion of need in her community. The pandemic has prompted record employment in Texas as the country reels from the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. Husband expects more people will need to shop at MAM in the coming months, but she can't bear the thought of someone getting sick on her watch. So she's focused on safety, limiting personal interactions in the store, quarantining donations before putting them on the racks, and closing doors completely when infection rates in the region rise. A bad economy can be a boon time for resale shops, which typically offer steep discounts on previously owned goods. Many households are short on cash and eager to pay as little as possible for essential light clothing, said Jared Ristoff, an analyst for the market firm Ibis World. But the public health crisis complicates that dynamic. Hundreds of people are dying every day, states are seeing spikes in new infections, and shop owners across the country are trying to figure out how to stay in business while keeping workers and customers safe from a disease that is still not well understood. Many thrift stores saw their revenue dry up when the pandemic brought huge swaths of the economy to a halt. At one point in April, 98% of Goodwill's, the largest network of secondhand stores in the country, with over 3,000 locations and tens of thousands of employees, had closed. Though a handful of states have paused or reversed their reopening efforts, most local governments are easing restrictions on daily life, and businesses are welcoming customers back in, and secondhand sales are expected to start ramping up again. This industry always gets stronger during a recession, said Adele Meyer, executive director of the National Association of Resale Professionals. She added that not a single one of her trade group's 1,000 members had gone out of business since the pandemic hit in mid-March. Husband isn't convinced that things will play out the way they did between 2007 and 2009 during the Great Recession. Back then, the MAM store got busier, she recalled. People realized they had to be more frugal. The same thing might happen again, but Husband thinks the pandemic will keep getting in the way. For one thing, she expected she would have to close a second time, but she didn't think it would be before autumn. This is a very different economic crisis, said Jennifer Lizotte, a professor at the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, who wrote a book on the history of secondhand shopping. The shutdown of the economy and the massive job losses that followed were unprecedented. We've never had as fast of an economic decline. And while she noted that consumer spending increased in May, she admitted that it's impossible to say with certainty what might happen later this year. Vintage wares present new worries. What's clear for now is that there's no shortage of secondhand goods. As people emerge from weeks of home isolation, they're donating mountains of old clothes purged during cabin fever-induced spring cleaning, Ma'am, Goodwill, Salvation Army, and America's thrift stores all told the Huffington Post that people are dropping off record amounts of stuff. Many stores have so much extra inventory that they're cutting prices. They're not cutting prices here. Our Goodwill said they're not having any sales in the foreseeable future. Come on now. To keep shoppers as safe as possible, many stores are operating on reduced hours, limiting how many people can enter at once, and policing the kinds of interactions that take place inside. Husband said that before she closed again in June, she had tried to ban hugging at the store, even though it broke her heart. It always makes me feel like an org yelling across the room, "No, don't hug her, back away." Every company Huffington Post spoke to for this story said they've made face masks mandatory despite objections from a small number of customers. Well, that's nuh-uh. Well, I suppose the Goodwill locations they spoke to, but here in Iowa, in Waterloo, Cedar Falls area, no face masks, no shield guards, nothing. So, yeah. Article goes on to say, the different stores taking different measures, sanitizing items, putting them in quarantine before they put some out. It says stores are quarantining donated and consignment clothing for a day or more before putting them on the shelves. It's unclear how long the virus remains on fabrics. Now, this is something I do see comments about. People are afraid to go into the stores and even touch things because the virus will lift on. But the Centers for Disease Control has said that while it can spread on touchable surfaces, it's much more likely to be contracted from an infected person in a confined space. So a sweater that's been sitting in Goodwill for a few days, you're not going to get the coronavirus from touching it in all likelihood. But yeah, this article does go on a lot, but I just wanted to point out those main points that yes, while there's a lot of donated goods now and stores are open and you can get into source, there is that fear that stores are going to be closed again, specifically in certain regions where there are surges. So like we talk about every day, if it's safe for you to get out, you can get out and you need to source, do it because you don't know what's to come. We thought maybe we'd get a second wave of this virus in the fall and winter and maybe have some more stay-at-home orders, but it's only July and things are surging and places are starting to shut down again. So as always, wear a mask, social distance, be safe when you're outsourcing. Get what you can now because we just don't know what tomorrow could bring. And that's a wrap on today's show. If you listened on YouTube, please be sure to give the video a thumbs up and leave a comment. Remember that you can also listen to the podcast via Anchor, Spotify, Apple, and more. Check out the show notes below for links to the articles I referenced. And if you want to learn how to make money on eBay and YouTube the way I do, check out my books over on Amazon. My Amazon store is linked below. Thank you so much for listening. I will talk to you again tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye.